Is there a doctor in the house? Oh, there's one on the sofa. There's one on the sofa. Dr. Martha Durham. Good morning, Doc.
Good morning. How are you?
Do doctors hate to be called Doc? I've often wondered.
I don't hate it.
So you went to school. You did a lot of school.
I did go to a lot of school, but you know, nobody that works with me calls me Dr. Durham. They call me Martha. It's too formal.
Right.
Well, we're going to call you Trixie. How about
All
that?
righty.
Just change your name because we feel better.
I've
calling
answered
you
to
Trixie.
worse.
Well, hey, Doc, you're here. This is called Kids Corner. We want to talk about maybe kids that find themselves hanging with the wrong crowd.
Yes. Yes.
How do you know that those kids are the wrong, other than like the obvious
They're
that
in
they
prison,
get?
perhaps.
Or headed that way.
Yeah.
What I look for when they're really young, you want to look for kids who are disrespectful to you.
As an adult.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they talk back or they encourage your child to do things you've asked them not to do. That kind of stuff. And when they're younger, it's easier to manage. When they get older, it is because of what Jack said. They're using drugs, they're drinking, they're not listening to their own parents. They're certainly not listening to you.
Well, how do you squash it? Let's say, let's start. Yeah, we can use my Will as an example.
Yeah.
I mean, he's, 7.
Yeah.
So, and there are some kids that come over and it's yes, ma'am, this, yes, ma'am,
Yeah.
and there's some that come over and it's like, yeah, and I'm like, yeah, what? No,
Good for
you know
you.
what I mean? Like, guys,
Yes.
we try to squash that.
And somebody told me years ago, says, just because you're in the South and you like kids to say yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, it's okay to say yes and no. It's not rude.
I don't know that I think it's rude, but I really don't like kids who address adults as if they're a peer.
Right.
And that's what I'm looking for. And so I do teach my children to say yes, ma'am, and yes, sir. And
But
and
if you
it's
go a
okay.
little bit north, they don't say that necessarily.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think it's rude, but I do think you have to have a respect for the authority figures around you. And so one thing
start
you can
that
do,
young, or it
yes,
won't translate
get
when
to
you get
know
older.
those parents and make sure that you're okay with how they parent if your child's ever in their house. And one thing I do a lot is I bring children to my house.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, because
So that-
then it's you got the little bubble, what everybody's doing.
And I have no problem with a child who's disrespectful to me. And the parents that we interact with know this, and they could do this with my child, is I will say that that's not how we do it in this house. And
Yeah.
this is how we say it. And I'm not mean or scary.
Of course not.
Well, and I can get really mad, but that's not going to work with a child. So you want to just be measured and calm, that Kasdan method that we've talked about before on here.
Because then it's almost like, whoa.
Yes.
She's okay. I'm not messing with Martha.
I'm not messing.
Well,
That's right.
but the kids that come to your house to be with your kids, being away from their home, can act differently than they do at their house.
Right, but I know the parents and the parents know me, and well in advance, I'm a little irritating. Well in advance, I'll say, here are the things, and please, it takes a village, you are in charge, and my children know that. And so we have some pretty good structure at all the houses. I would never send my children to a home where I didn't know the parents.
Of course, yeah, because then you don't know.
You don't know what's going on.
Some creepy
No.
people over there, or
Right.
there's a big dog that's going to get in. They have
What
guns
are their
laying
values?
around. I mean,
What
just
are their
all
standards?
kind of things.
That's
now.
right. That's right.
Now, what about though? The start getting up to like middle school and stuff,
Yes.
and your friends. I remember I had this group of girls that I, really enjoyed it. My mom
Yes.
would never let me spend the night, and I thought she was just so mean.
Do you know why she
Well,
didn't?
yeah, they got in trouble. I remember
Right.
they all got, so now, but I get it now that I'm older. In middle
I'm
school,
about
I
to
thought,
get you, Megan.
In middle school, I thought she was just mean.
Is your mother listening to this?
I'm sure, and I know,
and
and I
she's
know she
gonna-
knows who I'm
we're gonna
talking
high five
to.
each other in a
Yeah.
minute. Okay, here's what I say to parents, and I'm sorry, and I think this is true for me and my children too. If your children are gravitating toward a certain crowd, it's because your child might be doing something they shouldn't be doing. Your child is not perfect.
That's why
and
I
the
wanted to go with that. They
first
were
place
fun.
you have to look is what you're allowing your child to do or what they're hiding from you. And a lot of parents don't want to hear that. They want to blame and say it's the other kid's fault. No, usually your child is doing what that other group is doing, or there's one circumstance where if somebody's getting bullied a lot, they'll join with the bullies to stop getting bullied. That's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
And you have to really work with that child about their self-esteem and getting them pulled away from that. But mostly you've got to look at your own child. Do they want to use drugs? Do they want to drink? Do they want to break curfew? And people think they need to come down hard and say you can't see those kids anymore, but that's not going to work. What you have to do,
So they'll just find another group that's doing the same thing.
they're going to
or
take it
they'll do on their
underground.
own.
They're going to take it underground.
But do more parents than not think their children are angels? Are most of them shocked when they find out bad things that their kids do?
Surprisingly, there are more that are shocked than you would imagine. But most parents know. I feel bad for the parents who come in and they think my child's an angel, and then the child tells me all this stuff, and I've got to talk to the parents about what's going on.
Right.
Yeah.
Children with multiple Facebook accounts. One's the nice angelic child, the other one's the cussing, drug talk account. So I usually get parents, if you don't know that you can trust your child, then you don't give them all that freedom. You got to know you can trust them. One of the ways you can trust them is seeing everything they do, and after a while you go, you know what? I can trust them, I can take my hands off.
A little bit.
But it's real shocking when you find out, and I'm sorry to say this, some kids are having sex, some are doing drugs, some are selling drugs, and parents have no idea.
Have no idea. So
it's very sad to me.
Our big walkaways from this is really get to know your kids' friends
Yes.
from when they're
Yes.
little
And
to,
look at what your kids are doing and fix what you need to fix in your house.
yes.
May I use my favorite phrase?
Oh, please do.
Lay down with dogs and get up with fleas.
That's right. I
Thank you
say
very
it
much.
every day.
That's true. All right, Dr. Martha, we love
Thanks,
it.
Doc.
NorthMainCounseling.com is where you can go and talk to her. Maybe you want to talk to her about your kid. Just see is what your kid doing. Is it normal? Should we start to have more conversations? So you're great with that. Thank you, Doc.
Thank
Thank
Doc.
you.
You know, our
Appreciate it.
question of the day has to do really with Andy McDowell, but anybody, if you paid for first class fare on an airplane, but you got put in coach, would you make a rear end out of yourself or just accept it? I mean, she's a big TV star.
Yeah. I don't know. If I
Didn't seem to see
paid that
her.
much money, I want my seat.
Well, what's the difference? I don't know what the price difference is. I never looked.
Like $1,000.
I
mean,
never
it's
looked at the difference.
It's big. We'll talk about it. Read some of your answers next. And Jack, you got your tissue, right?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Clinic
Oh,
City.
wow. Once you see this, you're going to cry. Sweet love story. We'll tell you about it and show it to you in about 20 minutes.